The last session today on the Security, Science and Peace Conference is the panel on space. What is the current contribution of Croatia to European and overall space policies, and how can it be fostered and developed? We will ask our speakers today in our last panel. We will explore what are the potentials and main challenges, but also opportunities to advance this fast-growing industry in Croatia and Europe. Our first speaker is Mr. Tome Antičić, a senior research associate and head of the Center for Detectors, Sensors and Electronics at the Ruđer Bošković Institute, Zagreb, former director of the Ruđer Bošković Institute, and former state secretary for science at the Croatian Ministry of Science and Education. He studied at Cambridge University and University of London, obtained his PhD in experimental particle physics from the Johns Hopkins University, co-authored more than 110 original scientific papers, and he was the coordinator of several FP7 and Horizon projects involved with several CERN experiments, as well as at the Pierre Auger Observatory. The topic of the presentation is Croatia and ESA. Mr. Tom Antičić, the floor is yours.
Hello, do you all see my screen?
And we hear you.
Yes, okay, good. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. The thing I would like to show actually the Croatia's long and arduous path to the European Space Agency, which I'm sure once it becomes fully realized will be to mutual benefit, not to Croatia and Europe and the world, because Croatia has actually a lot of technologies to offer, which I will briefly touch upon here. But first, because this actually is just a sec, I cannot move my
for you.
Let's see, remote. I'm trying to move my presentation, so it doesn't seem to work. So
maybe we can share the slides. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, it works now. Sorry. Okay, good.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, good. So, sorry about that. So, first, some motivation, because this conference actually is centered around security. So, one aspect of security, which is not really taken too seriously, or it's being neglected, or it's being, in a sense, sometimes actually even laughed about, is the space security. And the thing is that only a very small percentage of destructive space objects on the potential collision course with Earth are detected with theoretically enough time to react and able to prevent a global catastrophe. I mean, today we're not able to do it, but hopefully we will be able to do that in the near future. Of course, you all know the example of the dinosaurs being extinct because of about a 10-kilometer asteroid hitting the Earth about 66 million years ago. So one can say that we are living today in a post-apocalyptic world. There are, unfortunately, also many, many more recent examples. For example, there was the Tunguska event explosion, which involved about a 12 megaton explosion above Siberia in Russia only about 100 or so years ago. And this only involved about a 50-meter meteoroid. The thing to realize is that there are in fact non-trivial odds for city-destroying events within 50 to 100 years, or in fact civilization-destroying events within 500 to 1,000 years. I mean, they are small, but they're not zero. And in a sense, scary part is we are not ready. Something can come up next year, tomorrow, for example. We will not be ready because we're only able to see a very small part of these dangerous objects. And when we see them, it will probably be too late. And there are also, for example, solar flares. So in about 150 years ago, the largest geomagnetic storm occurred in Earth. And the auroras were seen worldwide, including at the equator, and all the electrical systems began sparkling and igniting fires even though they were disconnected from the grid. A similar event today could wreak complete havoc on the grids. The satellites and wireless communications can get shut off, and this would result in a multi-trillion-dollar damage with many other implications it can cause. I mean, these things, this is not science fiction. This is not so scaremongering. It happens all the time. So like in 1989, so not too long ago, a flare blacked out most of the Quebec province, cutting power for up to 9 hours. In 2005, a solar system disrupted the grids, I mean, for 10 minutes, and many other things are happening on a smaller scale. So humanity should not be wondering if a storm like in 1859 can happen again. It will happen. It could happen on a much stronger scale too. The only question is when. Is it going to be in the next 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years? But it will happen, and we are not ready today. This could be, in many ways, not just sort of financial damage, but it could create political damage, and whole uprisings can happen. A lot of disturbances can happen politically on the world scale. We have to be ready. We are not ready today. ESA, of course, is doing a lot in that direction on many different fronts. They have today a lot of active science going on and satellites going on, including relevant to planetary defense, relevant to space debris and clean space, and similar. So their plans going well into 2030s and beyond. They already have numerous satellites in operation for Earth observation and many other missions. There's Copernicus, there's the EUMETSAT, and many other excellent technologies in space already operation now, and many more are planned. Many satellites are planned under constructions to be launched in the near and far future. So, I mean, it's important for Croatia to be a part of this endeavor, and this has unfortunately not been taken too seriously in Croatia for a very long time. So Croatia entered this process basically as the last EU member, but we are finally in the process. It started in 2018, and the process to the full ESA membership is actually a rather long process. And actually, it is good that it's long. It's a very serious project and process, and it wants to be able to, it requires for the country applying to prove that it's worth, that it has the technology, the science, and the system to partake in the European Space Agency on a fully equal basis. So the first comes the cooperation agreement, then comes after at least 5 years, the plan for European cooperating states to be part in, and that takes 5 more years with actually a lot more financial commitments then, but also opportunities to partake into its tenders. And then it becomes an associate member, which requires at least 7 years, and then comes the 8-year transition to a full member states. So here is a picture of Europe with the different memberships of the countries shown. So most of Europe is a full member. There are associate members. Our neighbor Slovenia is in there. There are the European cooperating states, which is the next stage. Croatia would like to go, I hope, very soon, because in fact Croatia is has signed agreements to give it an accelerated path, and I hope this will go through. And there's the cooperation agreement, where Croatia is here, and there's also, I think, Ukraine and Canada is part of that too. So what happened in 2018? Croatia finally signed the cooperation agreement with ESA, and the full legal framework is there. The exchanges of scientific and technical information has been going on, and this remains in force until 2023. The thing is, we wanted to, when I was the State's Secretary in the Ministry of Science, we wanted to go, on a more accelerated track. So in 2019, we requested from ESA if we could have a more intensive collaboration. And in fact, in 2020, in March 2020, we implemented the agreement for arrangement by ESA Council, which will make the Croatia's involvement at this stage on a much more intense rate. And as a result of that, there'll be tenders to which Croatia can participate in, and to which it is a guaranteed a certain amount of funds. So about 7 million euros Croatia is able to access, starting from projects already from last year. So already about 1 million euros or so have been given out to competitive tenders. And so there are about 6 million euros available in the next 3 rounds of project applications. One is ongoing right now. So, but while Croatia has no satellites, I think there we are, I think, the only one in EU, or on the last one's EU, unfortunately. It actually has a lot of potential, and it's already actually very active in several areas relevant to space, relevant to the European Space Agency. An excellent example is Višnjan Observatory. And it is a very small observatory in a beautiful part of Croatia in Istria, and it is run by this very enthusiastic astronomer Jerković, who managed to set up a system which is in charge of, and which is mostly populated by young enthusiasts from universities and high schools and so on, and to have an excellent system for monitoring asteroids, discovering asteroids, and tracking them. So, for example, as of 2016, more than 1,400 asteroids and 2 comets have been discovered at the observatory. And I think most physicists in Croatia at my Ruđer Bošković Institute and other similar institutions, Croatia, have gone through this observatory at one stage or other in their career, in the high school or university or so. And actually, if you do get a chance to visit it, do take it, because it's actually a beautiful location. Another example, as Bojan Pečnik has shown in his presentation, is Hipposfera. He did not point out that, in fact, the project they got from Horizon 2020 is the largest Horizon individual project given to a SME in Croatia, about 2 million euros. So he has this, as he explained, they have these platforms, balloons, which are able to stay fixed in space for a very long time, with these airships in space, which are able to be at the location for a very long time in a very cheap and in a robust basis, for which a lot of potential applications are available. There's the monitoring of the border, there's monitoring of the fields, crops, there's the communications, a lot of possibilities, and I really believe that this could be a multi-billion-dollar business. There's also other examples. There's, for example, quantum communication, where Croatia actually has some excellent individuals, and it's very prominent. This quantum communication technology achieves absolute security thanks to quantum encryption, because it works with photon exchange, and this allows instantaneous detection of hacker intrusion attempts. And this is a priority of governments and companies all around the world. And this kind of communication is, in fact, among other, promoted by the European Space Agency. So the communications in space and between space and ground one day should go through this quantum communication system. So a big milestone in Europe was, in fact, achieved only a few months ago, when there's a encrypted audio video communication established between Italy, Slovenia, and Croatia with the help of quantum technology. And this project, in fact, was led by scientists and experts from Croatia. And in this way, Croatia found itself in this field alongside the richest and most influential countries, even though we are a very small country and financially not too affluent. But we have excellent individuals and some excellent institutions, and the membership of ESA should, in fact, help these institutions, individuals to come to full realization for benefit of space and European Space Agency. So just briefly to end, as I mentioned, there are ongoing projects right now for different types, preparatory activities, R&D activities, space and downstream applications, and flight segment related activities. And this project starts from 100,000 euros per project to like 400,000 euros. And some have been already finished. I think the success rate is, I think, about 40–50%. And I talked to the ESA personnel, and they say a lot of the projects are really excellent, and I hope a lot more will be there soon. And I hope that the Croatia's memberships to ESA will continue to actually go now on a fast track, and that soon, within a decade or two, we will become full members of ESA. Thank you very much. This is it for me.
Of the Croatian way into ESA, and we hope really that we will use the benefits of this process, and that we will, as we have seen, we really have exceptional individuals, exceptional projects and enthusiasts, and I hope really that we will use the benefits of this process as much as possible in the upcoming period. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Ms. Marina Skender, a Croatian astrophysicist. After completing her PhD at the Ruđer Bošković Institute, she spent about 10 years as a postdoc in the USA, UK, Germany, Belgium, and Italy. Her fields of research is modeling of the phenomena related to solar activity. She currently holds a position of assistant professor in physics at the University of Osijek. She will tell us today about her experience and the recent e-course on spacecraft electric propulsion held on Ferrit as an attempt to initiate project activities in this field. Ms. Skender, the floor is yours. Ms. Skender, can you hear us?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes, I do, with some interruptions. Okay, thank you very much. Dear distinguished guests, dear audience, good afternoon. My field of research is solar physics, and my field is particularly influenced by satellite technology. And namely, satellite-borne instruments are providing some of the key data for development of the field. Even though I'm working in theoretical part of our research and community, we are inspired and sometimes inspired by what has been presented to us from data from the satellites. So solar physics as one branch of astrophysics is very influenced by satellite data, and in some cases perhaps even driven by satellite missions. So why do we care for satellite data? What's wrong with ground-based data? Nothing at all. Ground-based data are also very precious and valuable. But the thing is that we have clouds, we have atmospheric conditions, and we have atmosphere itself, which is blurry, which is not letting all electromagnetic radiation come all the way to the ground. So being able to have such privileged vantage points such satellites are having is giving us opportunity to broaden electromagnetic spectra we are looking at. I spent around 10 years living in Western countries and working as a postdoc. And of course, living there, for example, while I was living in Belgium, I couldn't help notice how wonderful space industry they have. They have really strong satellite industry. And during my time, they had a satellite called Proba 2, which was It's primarily done with Belgian force by Belgian scientists. They devised instruments, they launched them, they put them. It is an ESA mission, but they had really, so to say, Belgian satellite, which was having such interesting and wonderful instruments, which were giving cadences of data to be downloaded at the Earth, which were complementing and supporting the existing data. So I can really say from a first-hand experience how much it does for a whole scientific community when there are possibilities for scientists to take part also in satellite missions. Of course, the benefit doesn't stop the scientific community, it goes, it spread into other segments of society too. Another I wanted to mention is something I was encountering in my various places like Germany, like Italy, even in the UK, is that ESA is planning both satellites, of course, European Space Agency, this is what we were hearing about. ESA is planning satellite missions many years in advance. And then when they devise the instruments, which would be good enough and capable enough to parts of the instruments, which are going to be assembled, tested, and then launched to space. And those institutes around Europe are really participating in the Project Solar Orbiter, which has been launched already, and flying around the sun. So this is really giving people in my field incredible satisfaction to be able to do state-of-the-art engineering and science, and at the same time they are in a sense on the forefront of the scientific discovery. So it is tremendously important to join such projects and to develop this branch of thinking and research. The reason why I'm here today is related to the lessons on spacecraft electric propulsion. Which put us in contact with one person who is of our origin, but he is a scientist engineer who spent decades working in German DLR. This is Deutsches Zentrum für Luft und Raumfahrt. This is a German center for aeronautics. And he has found a lab there, and he became also a professor engineer at the Technical University in Braunschweig in Germany, and this is, of course, our professor Ognjen Božić. And he was kind enough to offer us possibility to have sequence of his lessons, as if he's presenting a course in Germany, and he would be titles that he to us. Those spacecraft scenarios taking place today. So this is it is well known way to accelerate. Perhaps the most basic, the easiest to say is to use the electric field to accelerate, electromagnetic field to accelerate the spacecraft. So his ideas are, he is the person who has found the lab in Germany on something similar, is to try and devise prototype of one such device and to try to put it on the international peers and to the international market, and after this to perfect it, to have it tested perhaps abroad, and of course having such projects successful could bring a lot. Since this is a space industry, of course, the further away towards this would be to have a space industry. And as we know, we would really need some high-tech industry in Croatia. We would really need to develop this at some point. So going after such, we were having lessons from April to July every week, once every week. We had as many as 89 registered people, out of which 1/3 were our students at FEDIT, the Faculty of Electrical Engineering and Computational Technologies. The rest of the participants were really senior people who just showed lots of interest into the subject. also have to say that we had participants from other places in Europe, not just, from other places in Croatia, not just in Osijek. And we were also lucky to have guests from Bosnia and Herzegovina and also from Serbia. So spontaneously, it just became, so to say, pleasant. What we happened after that, and some contacts were established, better assessment situation is here, and perhaps some tools about how to form consortium, how to make a project. After it was still in the air, so to say. So let's see where it really could lead us. For me personally, I think it is very what is happening in Croatia in the last few years is just really wonderful. As we heard in the previous talk, Croatia started joining ESA in the initial phase of it, and the Horizon project, as we already had, extremely successful one. There are more of them, and there are more projects. Some of them already astrophysicists and started in Croatia. So this is going to be really, really exciting period. What do we need to do if we want to perhaps take this project a bit further? Of course, I would love to see creative. Okay. Yes, so we are hoping that we will find the way to put it to the international scale, and from that point on, we would of course need some support. Some sort of say overarching plan would be beneficial if Croatia decides to opt for finding this type of industry. I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Skender, for sharing with us your experience, and we wish you a lot of success with your e-course on spacecraft electric propulsion. And it is very good to see that Croatia has also a regional influence, and that we can share our knowledge, our expertise, and learn from each other. And thank you very much for being with us on the conference, and your experience is very valuable to this panel. Our next speaker is Professor Slobodan Bosanac, Associate of the Institute Ruđer Bošković and Director of Adriatic Aerospace Association. Professor Bosanac has published over 100 scientific papers and 4 books on the topics of atomic and molecular physics, electromagnetic interactions, and astrophysics. And he is also the author of the Croatian Space Strategy proposal and obtained 2 Croatian States Awards in Science. Also, he was the president of the Croatian Astronomical Society. The topic of the presentation of Mr. Bosanac is Croatia's entry into space 4.0.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this conference and present in brief our view, or my view, on relationship of space endeavor and the meaning of Pugwash conference, and that's why it is somehow a mixture of the two. Now, I would like to share the screen. Can you see this? The screen? No.
No.
No, we are seeing
sorry,
you.
Sorry. I must share
screen. Yes.
Share. Okay, fine. Now you can see it.
Yes.
We see it. Yes.
All right, fine. Okay, first slide. Just again this. Yeah. Okay. So our civilization enters what's called space 4.0, which is in parallel to what's called industry 4.0. However, the meaning of that in fact new types of technology enters and new views, etc. However, in many respects, space 4.0 will have and has a more profound and I would say very essential impact on our civilization than industry 4.0 on its own. In fact, in my opinion, our relationship to space 4.0 will determine, this is not doomsday scenario, but may have impact on the future of our civilization. Why? I mean, I'll perhaps say something briefly about it, but that's a topic of a single conference. Now, what is the essence of 4.0? Well, it's about 20 years old. It started with the first launch of a small, today it's called the popularly Cube satellite, and it is a small box of the size 10 by 10 by 10 centimeters, packed with compact technology. And this small piece, this small cube, in fact, in great examples, in many examples, contain technology that was used before in larger satellites. I would compare this with the difference between tube TV sets and today mobile phones. That is the difference. However, that is not perhaps the greatest impact on space. Far the greatest impact is that with Space 4.0 started very cheap access to space. Before that, the space was the privilege of big agencies like NASA, ESA, Chinese, Russians, etc. But with Space 4.0, individuals, almost individuals, can build a satellite, send it into the space, and do whatever one wants to do from space. Now, there are two things in Space 4. One is beneficial, with opportunities to education, to development new technologies, for the benefit of civilization on Earth, not only in space. Artificial intelligence helping with people, etc. But there is an opposite to that, very great threats. And that is, I would say, where also is the connection with Pugwash. And that is, you see, the threat to our civilization by nuclear bombs. But today it is not. It is information and manipulation with information. Now it's from space, you have access to the whole world with the information. Before that, by lines, by the optic cables, etc., that was limited by, you come to a border and they wouldn't let you in with this technology. But from space, you access everybody on Earth. And this is recognized by not only states, but by private individuals who has finances that exceed the budget of many, many countries in the world. And they can afford to send 100,000 small satellites under the pretext of enhancing education and everything, access to information all over the world. But in fact, behind it is just nothing else but seek of power and big business. Now, if individuals can do this, then there must be a backlash. And then, let's say, Chinese, Russians will send another 100,000, to prevent all this. They would build satellites to catch those and clean them from the space, etc. And there would be, instead of cooperation in space, we'd have really a war from the space, both from the individuals, very rich individuals. I'm not going to mention explicitly the name, but you know who I'm thinking about, but also from the space. That is the Space 4.0 that we are entering it. Now, I'm very sorry. I'm not in for the doomsday scenario, but that's the fact. Now, just briefly focus on space policy of EU. There are two aspects. One is downstream and one is upstream. Downstream is you have four major systems by Europe sent up there. It's Copernicus, Galileo, Egnos, EUMETSAT. Each one has certain role. I'm not going to discuss, but there is another one upstream, and that is to build technology sending to space. And here, the European Union is putting great deal of money specifically for getting independence, technology independence of the big actors in the world, primarily Americans, US, sorry, not Americans, but US, then Chinese, Russians, etc. So there is big money invested for the space technology independence of Europe from the big actors. And now, what is the role of small countries in all this scenario? Well, it is either they will ignore what's going on, or they will go and learn and little bit participate with their own means in this development. If they are not, they will be simply being handled by these big actors and without knowing what's going on. So what is the framework for Croatian space policy? Well, here is the list: contribution to public service. So we have a list here: national security, natural disasters, controlling pollution, food, migrations, etc. Science and innovation, very important. Science and technology, defining economy, and also very important international cooperation, primarily through European Space Agency programs, EU programs, but then also with other major actors in the world. Now, this is Croatian Space Action Plan, but it is, let's say, a blueprint for many smaller countries, how to at least get some involvement in the space, world space activities. They must have certain body that would somehow encompass all interested or all actors involved with the space science and technology. So in the first place, establishing of Croatian Space Office. Well, this is not yet in Croatia. Our Ministry of Education plays the role of being connected or go between with the European Space Agency, but it is not a space office. So that needs to be established, either agency or space office. Then Croatia must bring a strategy and national space policy so that they would be vis-a-vis European Space Agency and European Space Program know what Croatia is interested in. And so that in this way being involved in the larger scale projects. Then short-term, medium, and long-term, right? And then A3 and Ministry of Science. Now A3 is, I'll come to that, it's Adriatic Aerospace Association, of which I'm president. And I'll give a few words about it, but that is connection between A3 and Ministry of Science and Education. And then definitely very important is investment into education and studies at universities and academies, especially connection with technology center of European Space Agency, which is ESTEC. This is something that we need to be connected, only not formally, but also informally. So about Adriatic Aerospace Association, which is an association that encompasses or has members of individuals and firms and universities, research institutions, like Ruđer Bošković Institute. By the way, I use here opportunity to thank Tome Antičić for being really helping hand in establishing Adriatic Aerospace Association. And So, but these are objectives of Adriatic Aerospace Association. You can read it here, objective, what we offer, expertise, and because it's essentially, we are about 70 members strong, and our members are more or less all individuals and institutions in Croatia that work with space activities. Not all do not involve, but a great deal of them. And so this is our program. Now, any spacefaring nation that would want to be somehow part of the larger scale world activity in space needs to send, produce and send a small satellite, that cube satellite that I was telling you in the introduction. That is, that will be Croatian ticket to space for 0. So we, in our association, we are planning and we are working on this nano satellite, cube satellite, 10 by 10 by 20 centimeters, mission taking pictures from space, purpose, education, pupils, companies, etc., participation. And this is the list of our partners and those participating in this project. Just briefly, what is the orbit and what will where will this small satellite Perun, we call it Perun 1, be? It will be at 550 kilometers height from Earth with a lifetime of about 5 years. The orbit is synchronized with Sun, and here you see this black dot is Zagreb, and this red dot is our Perun, which goes always with Sun. Sun goes, this is now winter, that was now, this is now spring. And now it will be, this is, let's say, summer. So you see always this Perun goes towards the Sun. And this is, it will be visible 6 times a day, 3 times during the night, 3 times during the day. So this is the pictures. And just briefly, just to say, camera, just this is what will be seen. This camera will have not very high resolution. This will be more or less resolution, these Brioni Islands, etc. Only to mention here, when I was talking about small satellites spying on Earth, today there are satellites that have a resolution of about 30 to 50 centimeters. So you can see that, in fact, somebody private with big money can send few such satellites and spy on, you know, what kind of bathing suit you have on, you know, on sun, while sunbathing. So there's this. And at the end, just a little bit video.
Možda nema sounda.
I hear the sound.
There is no sound in space.
Sound to the video. Mr. Bosanac? Isključi pa ga šeraj ti. There is no sound to the video, so we will share it for you. Is that okay? Da. Mr. Bosanac, there was no sound to your video, so we will share it. Is that okay?
Sorry.
We will share it. We will share it for you.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, somebody. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, thank you. Can we see this video?
Do you want to see it again?
We will share it. We will share it. Just a few seconds.
Okay.
Until we wait, I would like to thank you for your excellent presentation. Can we see the video now? The last slide, yes. Last slide, zadnji slide.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Pusti ga se. Ništa ne diraj više.
Vidiš kako Hrvatska nije svijetla.
Ideja je bila početak, lansirala iz poznatog ka nepoznatom, kroz zajedništvo koje pokreće i otkrića koja nas motiviraju, za generacije koje dolaze, budućnost bez granica. Perun 1. Hrvatska ulaznica u svemir 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Bosanac. Also, this video was very impressive, and thank you for this overview of the intersectoral approach to the space, to the development of space policies. And as we see, it's really an interdisciplinary field. And here we would also like to invite all the stakeholders to work together and to unite to establish a Croatian space office or space agency. And I think that this could be also a message from this conference, that we should all work together, cross-sectoral, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary. With such enthusiasts and experts like yourself and all our participants today, I think that we really will succeed in this. Thank you very much once again. And our last panelist today is Ms. Mirta Medanić, a program manager at Amphinicy Technologies, a leading software provider for companies operating in the satellite industry. She holds a master's degree in electrical engineering and computing from the University of Zagreb. She's an alumna of International Space University in Strasbourg and Space Generation Advisory Council, a UN organization for youth in space. In her presentation, she will share her experience of developing a career in the space industry while living in Zagreb, Croatia, in order to inspire other young professionals to explore their options in this dynamic and growing sector. Ms. Medanić, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. First of all, can you hear me well? Can you see my slide?
We hear you well and we see your slides.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to speak at this conference. I'm very honored to be here. So I would like to welcome the distinguished excellencies, the respected international audiences, and dear colleagues and dear friends. Today, I would like to speak about space in Croatia from a perspective of young professionals. Young professionals are individuals between 18 and 35 years old who have academic background or are students and of private or public universities. And I'm very happy that I already saw on my colleague Danko's presentation that students are part of the team of the Perun mission. Space is part of our everyday life. We use it in communications, in meteorology, in navigation. Also, my colleagues already mentioned the importance of space in such as planetary security or security from the space environment. And I also noticed that some of the speakers today mentioned some of the important aspects, such as being critical and looking to the broad picture when we are using technologies, and also the international cooperation. So first, let me tell you a little bit about my experience. So I work and live in Zagreb. I hold a master's degree in electrical engineering and computing from the university in Zagreb, from Faculty of Electrical Engineering and Computing. And I also have 12 years of experience working in the ICT industry in Croatia, in the software part. And during my career, I specialized in several fields of business administration, such as finances and accounting, EU funding programs, and intellectual property rights management. And for the last 7 years, I work in the space industry. I'm part of the team at Amphinicy Technologies. Amphinicy Technologies is a software company. It started 21 years ago as a spin-off from Zagreb University. And we deliver complex software solutions and innovative software products for the satellite ground segment industry. So we support satellite operators, satellite ground equipment manufacturers, humanitarian agencies, when satellite technologies are used in disaster management or e-medicine or e-learning, and also space agencies. Some crucial elements or moments happened in 2014 and 2015 when I joined Amphinicy, is that the company was in a transition from the project to product base. So we were investing our own resources in research and development activities. We are developing innovative solutions, and today I will mention one of them. It is the Blink solution, innovative software-based solution for satellite data acquisition and processing, to be used, for example, in the Earth observation missions to quickly acquire and process streams from Earth observation satellites such as Copernicus mission, and also others. The second was that in 2014, it was the first time Croatia was a full member of European Union. So it was the beginning of multi-annual financial framework 2014 to 2020. So Amphinicy also used these funding programs in our development. Also in that time in Croatia, European Space Agency delegation visited Croatia, and the first meetings happened between our government representatives and European Space Agency. We also heard today the progress we have in the years that come after that. And also the first space event started to be organized at Zagreb University, and I attended one of them, and I was really inspired by the technologies, especially the CubeSat, small satellites, and the impact that they can have in our everyday life. With that emotions and that passion, I was thinking, what can I, as a professional, do to collaborate and to support the development of space industry in Croatia. I decided that I would like to learn as much as I can about the local activities, but also the international and global activities and processes, and to see what is the future and what is the potential and opportunities for new generation. So what I did, I joined Space Generation Advisory Council in 2017. Space Generation Advisory Council, it is a global organization of students and young professionals in the space industry. It was established at United Nations, and today it numbers more than 15,000 members that are coming from 165 countries, and one of them is Croatia. I had opportunity, and it was my honor to serve as a national point of contact in Croatia for the last 4 years. And I invested my time and my energy into connecting young professional community in Croatia with the organization, and also promote the activities in Croatia as well. And one flagship project that we did in Croatia is the webinar series. Before I explain that, so at the moment in Croatia, there are around 15 active members at SJC who are meeting regularly and discussing about space and the opportunities and our own experiences at our daily jobs. And there are around 50 regular members who are just observing the activities and contribute when they can. So the webinar series that we organized this year, we wanted to present space as an interdisciplinary field. So we organized 8 sessions, and each time we were speaking about space from a different angle. So from the aspects of space diplomacy, engineering, science, space medicine, space applications, but also about space and art and culture. And we also wanted to speak to the young professionals and show the work of our professionals in Croatia. So in each episode, we had guests who are local experts who spoke about their experience. So we definitely have something to show. I also joined Adriatic Aerospace Association, and my colleague Danko Bosanac already presented this organization. And recently, SJC and Adriatic Aerospace Association signed a mutual agreement of understanding and cooperation. So these are 2 organizations or 2 key places where young professionals can learn about trends and about opportunities. Both organizations, of course, have their digital channels online, such as website and YouTube channel and social media. So everyone interested can learn about and get engaged, of course. In 2019, I participated to the Space Studies program at International Space University in Strasbourg. It is the international and interdisciplinary and intercultural educational program. And during 9 weeks, I had opportunity to listen to the core lectures about space, but also to network and to work in team projects with participants from more than 30 countries, such as India, United States, European Union countries, and even Africa. Because I was a member of SGC, I had opportunity to join UN COPUS. UN COPUS is a committee for peaceful use of outer space, and it is established to gather the member states from all around the world to discuss and to monitor the space exploration activities so they can benefit to everyone, developing countries, but also spacefaring nations. So no matter the level of development, space should be for all, and everyone should have access to it and also have benefits of it. And last but not least, I would like to mention the another international space forum, which is International Astronautical Congress. It is also an annual event where all the space industry meets every year in another city in the world, and also present their work, talk about trends, and also do business sometimes. And now I would like to list 5 actual steps that a young professional can do now from Croatia. So the first one can be to join an existing space project. I think that the ideal is the CubeSat mission because besides the technical and scientific part of designing, developing, testing, and experimenting with technologies and putting it in this small shape in cubes, 10 by 10 by 10 centimeters, there are other aspects such as what would be the mission of the project, so which payload we will put on it and which problem we will solve with it. So this is this business aspect, and also the maintaining the budget of a space CubeSat project is one challenge. And also, so if we want to send a spacecraft into space, we need to follow the international regulations, and also it is a matter of multilateral agreements between countries who own the satellite, but also who are host countries of the launch site and also the launch vehicle. So the team in CubeSat project should have also engineers, but also people who know about business and finances and also space law. And of course, the creative people who will write nice stories about it, such as the video we saw about Peron e-project. So we need creative people who can, and journalists who will talk about it and speak about it. The second step I would like to mention here is if we already have some experience and if we have idea or we notice a need that is not met yet, and that this need can be solved with a new project, new technology, or new service that uses space or satellites, we can propose our own idea and start a startup. And one example of that can be joining the competitions such as Cassini Hackathon. Cassini Hackathon is European Commission's project that is implemented in different countries in Europe, where citizens, professionals, students, and people who have entrepreneurial spirit can join, and in 2 days, in very short period of time, try to tackle some of the challenges. And one such event happened last week, actually, in Zagreb, and 9 other countries in Europe, where participants tried to meet challenges that were tackling the Arctic region. So it was really nice event, and sometimes people who attend for the first time this event and meet their team members for the first time in 2 days learned a lot, and eventually as a result proposed some interesting ideas. And also the European Commission and the sponsors and organizers of Cassini Hackathon, then after the event, they provide very good opportunities such as incubation programs or mentorship programs for the teams. The third idea could be start your own research. So when I started to work in the space industry 7 years ago, and especially 4 years ago when I became a national point of contact in Croatia, my interests were in how to communicate space in a country that doesn't have established a space industry. This was one of my challenges. And the other one is to how to fill the gap and support young professionals. They're coming from non-spacefaring nations how to offer them enough education, maybe informal one, so they can join the space industry, and they can also take opportunities that this industry is offering. I'm actually working at the moment on these two projects, and I submitted abstracts to the International Astronautical Congress this year that happened in Dubai. Also, this is maybe interesting for other professionals. There are other also issues in the world in terms of space industries, such as space debris, space traffic management, the question of mega constellations, and so on. So for young professionals who are already enthusiasts in this part, they can round it in a paper, in a professional article, and submit it and contribute to the global space know-how. So the fourth one is idea is talking about space initiative. My colleagues already mentioned all the efforts that the Republic of Croatia made in the last couple of years in terms of establishing some basic and some grounds for development of the new sector in Croatia, perhaps. Together with my colleagues, we submitted a public comment to the National Development Strategy of the Republic of Croatia until 2030. And we proposed that space science and technology became a strategic country goal. And this public comment was co-signed by 24 professionals from Croatia who are all successful in their particular field. Some of them are speakers of this conference. So, and also my message to all other young professionals: if you have notice that there is a need, that your perspective or your point of view can contribute and support the activities of other, like from the civil sector and also the government sector or the industry, please speak up and join. And also the last one is organizing the space events. And this is something that is actually part of the two organizations that I mentioned, Adriatic Aerospace Association and the Space Generation Advisory Council. Both organizations can help and support for organizing events where we can all meet and speak about space and work together forward. I can give us an example of such event. So even we are in the pandemic period, the team at SJC organized the European Space Generation Workshop. It is a regional event organized with the team at Madrid and other Madrid and in Spain and other members in other countries. And the topics of this online conference for young professionals were topics such as Earth observation, quantum technologies, artificial intelligence, and also international cooperation. So there were working groups where participants and attendees and delegates of this online event can work on practical work together, and a result were the reports that they make, and they're covering each of these four topics. To learn more about the opportunities of space generation, you can go to www.spacegeneration.org. There, everyone can actually become a part of this organization. But for the young professionals between 18 and 35 years old, there are specific opportunities to become an organizing team member for organizing conferences, or to become a team member of the team project groups. There are around 10 project groups of SJC, and each one of them is covering different field of space industry. So from space exploration, commercial space, small satellites, near Earth object project group, until even space for humanities, and the new one is diversity and diversity in the space industry. And with this, I would like to conclude my presentation. If you want to stay in contact, I provide here my email address. And also, if you type in Google Space and other stories, you can find my blog where I speak about space and try to provide informative content for young professionals and for everyone that wants to join the space industry. So thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Medanić, for this, for sharing your experience with us. It is really good to see the younger generation, the digital natives, the young cosmopolitans, how they manage to connect globally. And it is really good to hear these recommendations from for young professionals. I hope also this conference will contribute to the dissemination of information and for the further development of the Croatian space policies. And here we are coming to the end of this panel and of our conference. I would like to thank Mr. Tome Antičić for your contribution, Ms. Marina Skender from Ferit, thank you very much. Mr. Slobodan Bosanac, I wish you a lot of success with the Perun. It was very interesting, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. And Mirta Medanić, thank you for the recommendations for young professionals and for sharing your experience in the space industry. Now we are closing the conference and we would like to have a small wrap up. And instead of conclusions, I would like to give the floor to academician Ivo Šlaus, who will close this two-day conference on security, science and peace with his vision for the future and future engagements in Pugwash. Academician Šlaus, the floor is yours. Unmute yourself, please. Yes.
Dear friends, our thanks and appreciations for all of the speakers who spoke yesterday and today. And it is actually on a basis of what you said that inspired me to somehow tell what my own personal view is, what to do just now. Let me thank also, on behalf of all of us, to the organizer, to Anna and Zvonimir, because they have done quite a lot in organization. This world we live is the best ever. There are a number of all socioeconomic indicators show that, but one that immediately comes to mind, and it is easy to remember, in basically less than 100 years, our life expectancy has increased by about 15 years, and that is quite spectacular. However, this world is also extremely vulnerable and is self-destroying. What do we mean? We know that with weapons of mass destruction, we could destroy this world in about 1, possibly 2 days. Most of these weapons of mass destructions are on the hair trigger alert. They can be within minutes sent from one country to another, and also from the submarines much closer. 15 years ago, our member of Pugwash, Pugwashite, Lord Martin Rees, later president of the Royal Society, said, and let me quote, "The 21st century is the first in Earth's history where one species, us, we humans, has our planet's future in its hands. It has never happened before." And then he concludes, "In a global village, there will be always global village idiots, unfortunately, and they can be very, very dangerous. We may say, of course, we survived for 75 years without using the weapons. However, we have another thing which will happen for sure if we continue with business as usual. What that will be? It will be a total destruction of natural and human capitals. Of course, this conference that we organized overlapped with the COP26 meeting in Glasgow. As usual, it extended a little bit longer than it should have, or than it was planned. And the hope is that there will be some conclusion, primarily concerning the use of the fossil fuels. Of course, it's not an easy problem because economy and life of some of the countries very much depend on that. And it will be difficult, but possible to actually reduce considerably the use of all of the fossil fuels. This can be done by both reducing our consumption and increasing renewable energies. Based on the famous Russell-Einstein manifesto, Pugwash was founded. And the sentence there, which is very important, is remember your humanity and forget the rest. Usually this forget the rest is somehow overlooked. However, it is very important because what we see is that politicians and countries do develop a lot of time to those things which are not crucial for human existence. And let me list some of them. One is, for instance, the Taiwan-China crisis. Another is a long standing crisis in Palestine. The next one is actually the situation on the border of Belarus and European Union. And there is also a problem dealing with constant, competitive, almost hostile competition between, on one side, China, on the other, United States, European Union, and Russia, European Union, and China, and so on. Now, can we forget about all of these things? None of them is really going to destroy humankind unless we use the weapons of mass destruction, or unless we even increase the business as usual with consuming more of the fossil fuels and destroying natural capital even more than we are doing today. However, we should not neglect them because we live in an interdependent global world. And this world implies the famous butterfly effect. Even a small perturbation in one part can cause a major catastrophe throughout. The second conclusion I am stimulated to say is that we cannot save our world by continuing business as usual. We cannot save our world by superior weapons So a superpower would not do very much good. As a matter of fact, the period from 1990 to 2000 was the situation of a dominance of one superpower and no indicators improved. The second conclusion I underline is who should be involved is, if not superpower, it is not the product of some scientific genius. So who should be involved? The answer is everybody, all sovereign states, all associations, United Nations, academies, universities, each one of us, and each one of us doing the best we can, requiring new, out-of-the-box ideas, appropriately changing our behavior, our mindset. Then we come to the important definition of politics. Aristotle, more than 2000 years ago, called politics the master science of good. And what is the good? The good is prosperity of humankind. And this is what is important to really keep the world as it is. And this has also to underline that none of us can say, okay, other will solve it. What is my little contribution to the climate change? No, that is not so. Yehuda Bauer, speaking at the Stockholm conference 20 years ago devoted to Holocaust, said, thou should never, but never be a bystander. Each one of us has to be involved. And then in that same year, the assembly of 110 Nobel laureates met in July 7 in Oslo, and they came up with the statement, it is time to turn our back on the unilateral search for security, in which we seek to shelter behind walls. Instead, we must persist in the quest for united action to counter both global warming and a weaponized world. And I underline, to survive in this world, we must learn to think in a new way. And even more, emphasizing as never before, the future of each one of us depends on the good of all. All of the problems we are faced with are global, so clearly cannot be solved by one or several countries. And the conclusion, the third conclusion would be that we should be approaching something which is called global governance. Is that possible? Let me give you some numbers. There are close to 8 billion of us human beings. And there is more than 7 billion mobile phones. Incredibly, almost 90% of the world population has mobile phones. There are 100 million non-governmental organizations. There are network of networks. There are association, world association of academies, of universities. And so indeed, yes, we could do as much as it is possible to somehow come to the world global government. But what to do in this remaining several years, because it will take obviously about 10 years or so until we come to the possibility of having the global government. Yesterday, we discussed and emphasized, several of us emphasized, how important it is to solve conflicts by dialogue. And we have some very successful dialogue. One very successful dialogue was what is called Iran nuclear deal. And it was successful until one of the crucial countries under the presidency of Truman decided to withdraw. And let me have from my own experience in my own country, 30 years ago, when Yugoslavia was fragmented and disintegrated, leadership of each of the republic met regularly, and nothing came out of these meetings. As a matter of fact, the standard joke was that they should repeat something like the Vatican conclave. They should be kept there, quote unquote, imprisoned unless they come with a solution. And of course, there was a solution of peaceful disintegration, as it was done in Czechoslovakia, and more significantly, as it was done in USSR. Now USSR is composed of almost 20 different republics. Many newspapers were speaking at that time how dangerous it is, and it is very dangerous. And there is a number of reasons why it is dangerous, because even Russian Federation now is a huge country, multi-ethnic, and of course with various diversities in its large spectrum. So dialogue can be useful, but only to a certain point, and depending on adequate leadership. And as a third best way to solve the problem, this comes from the disintegration of USSR, where one of the currently independent republics, Kazakhstan, actually made extreme progress. Kazakhstan is a very large country, I think is number 6 among the size of the countries. It has very low population of about 15 million, just as neighboring Uzbekistan, that is whatever, almost 10 times smaller. Kazakhstan succeeded in maintaining friendly relationship with all of its neighbors, with all of the other countries, and succeeded in another things, and that is also very important, was internationally very active and proposed that a day when they decided, which is the day of their independence, August 29, 1991, to actually dismantle the Semipalatinsk nuclear test state. And then they proposed that this day would be actually called the day of abolition of nuclear test. And indeed, this international activity stopped. No country, though now we have 9 nuclear weapon states, are doing any of the tests. Not only that, the tests actually have caused quite significant damage, not only around the Semipalatinsk, but also in the United States. I believe in Nevada, in Utah, there are damages there that happen to the population, which was not adequately informed and adequately protected. Kazakhstan invited foreign help. Japanese came immediately because unfortunately they had experience from 1945 when the bomb was dropped. And so we could consider that what has been done by Kazakhstan is a great success story. Conflict, of course, can go in a wrong way. They can, of course, lead to a major war, or they can lead to foreign intervention. And again, the foreign intervention sometimes is good and sometimes is not. To some extent, it was good in former Yugoslavia because it stopped the war. It was terrible in the case of Afghanistan. As a matter of fact, as it was said and quoted in numerous newspapers, $3,000 billion was involved in essentially military affairs in Afghanistan. To put the number of these 3 trillions, let me tell you that this is a yearly GDP of United Kingdom or of France. So it's not a negligible amount. So if we look for an anti-example that we should follow, obviously is Afghanistan, and that is an extremely bad case. As I said, we are just now going through the COP26. We do hope that countries that depend on coal will significantly reduce this. This is based on 2 successful meetings that preceded the meeting now in Glasgow. This is first the Kyoto Agreement, and then later a famous Paris Agreement in 2015, which was signed eventually by all of the countries. And it had fairly good mechanism to keep it. So for instance, when United States, or precisely Trump, decided to withdraw, several years were involved before he could actually withdraw. So United States was still under the obligation of adhering to the case of whatever the agreement signed in Paris actually said. The next conclusion I draw is actually the question that all of the polls indicate that we are going in a wrong direction. Polls for about the last several decades in almost all of the countries of the world and on all of the continents show that typically 60 to 70% of the people believe we are going in a wrong direction. And so it has to be changed. And how should we change it? As I said before, we don't have much time. We have to do it rather quickly. And the best way to do it quickly is by consensus, by what in a game theory is called win-win game. We don't have time for zero-sum games because that results always in some losers and some winners. And that, of course, may trigger an additional problem. Of course, when we are unhappy with the situation, it is economy which is rarely, as it was pointed out by Pope Francis, this economy kills. We have to change it. But the cause of this economy is politics, and this politics is wrong and has to be changed. We all know, of course, that the structure, international structure we have now, is the one that was developed 75 years ago, and the world drastically changed during these 75 years. So obviously, structures that we have, like the UN Security Council, are in many ways obsolete. But what should we do? During the meeting today, it was pointed out that actually at some time, several decades ago, actually 60 years ago precisely, we had an activity around the non-aligned movement, which really played a very significant role in trying to assure the peaceful existence in the world. We could repeat that and reinforce it, adjust it to what present conditions require, but we should do more. Obviously, the Security Council cannot be composed just by people providing representatives of their own respective countries. They have to include also specialists, but specialists that will have much more power than, for instance, the ECOSOC have today. So kind of the UN Council for Environment, UN Council for the Economy, and similar things are definitely needed. The sixth conclusion I was inspired is the fact that the world we are living in and the world we are approaching is a fast changing world. So things will change. It is the role of emerging technologies, about which we heard just several hours ago, that are so important. There are some of these emerging technologies that we are familiar with, that we are not familiar with, but we are at least aware that they are used, like artificial intelligence, like robotics, and of course, on the other side, genetic manipulation, CRISPR-Cas9, something which is sometimes referred to as human being 3. So we are not, as Fukuyama wrote, approaching the end of history. No, we are part of the changing history. And the only way how to face that, what to do, is of course what is in the title of the Pugwash. Conferences devoted to science and world affairs. We do considerably more to devote to science. Sometimes it's said that this is a lot of money. Nonsense. Just look how much people have devoted to building megalithic structures or building the churches in the Middle Ages. We are spending a lot of money in our budgets in a totally unnecessary way, but the effort in science should be increased both in terms of financial support, but also human support and also recognition that is being given. This is the only way how we will assure that the resolution of the United Nations, transform our world, is fulfilled properly. Sometimes we hear that human beings are hostile, are violent. This is not true. The famous Sevilla resolution from 1986 showed that humans are not violent, that peace is possible, as it was demonstrated in a famous event on the Christmas Eve in 1940, where soldiers on one front, the French, English, and the other German, decided to stop fighting and start singing Christmas carols. We can succeed. We must succeed in assuring that our world survives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Šlaus, for these inspirational words for the end of the conference, but also warnings, because I think what we really need are responsible leaders and leadership. And of course, that is thinking towards a global governance, responsible global governance. And I hope that with this conference, we gathered some responsible and leaders who are visionaries, some former leaders, some current and some future. So I hope that, thank you very much for this broad overview of our conference and of the future of the Pugwash Conferences on Science and the World Affairs, the movement and the technologies and the role of science in society that it should play. Before we close the conference and I give the word to Mr. Zvonimir Šikić, I would like to thank first the International Pugwash Conferences on Science and World Affairs, Mr. Paolo Cotta-Ramosino, of course, Professor Ivo Šlaus, the World Academy of Art and Science for the co-organization, the Office of the President of the Republic of Croatia for the patronage, the Europe House Zagreb and the European Movement for the cooperation, the Embassy of the Republic of Azerbaijan to Croatia and Ambassador Gurbanov, and the Independent Union of Science and Higher Education for the support throughout the conference. And I would like to thank to all the speakers, and please, Zvonimir, close the conference.
Well, I would like to thank all the participants on the Zoom and on the YouTube. We had also the streaming on the YouTube, and especially, of course, our panelists. And I hope that you think, as I think, that the conference was a success, and I think it's a starting point for this Pugwash with the new leadership, and I think that the starting point was very good, and thank you very much, everybody, and see you at the next conference, I hope next year.
Greetings from Zagreb.
Greetings from Zagreb. Bye.